I'm always fascinated by ancient vines and their heritage and how you support a vineyard like that. I'm finally headed off to meet one guy whose great-great-grandfather planted this ancient vineyard, and then at the same time, the guy who's currently farming it. I love coincidences like that. It's crazy.
Both of your families were long time Sonoma families, right? How did you guys get here? What was the
So my family, I'm fifth generation. Our family's been here since the 1870s. Two of my great-great-grandfathers both came here to start wineries. So one came from Napa and the other came here via the lumber industry and ended up in Alexander Valley planting grapes and hops and prunes, and quickly started his winery.
And your family has also been here since...
Yeah, 4 or 5 generations on both sides of the family. Only in Alexander Valley since about the late 60s.
Okay.
But my grandparents ended up owning about 40 acres that they farmed. It was all in prunes. So I grew up around that. And then my dad's side of the family is from Dry Creek.
Right.
And they came there in the early 1900s, and much like Bret's, farmed whatever they needed to eat and whatever they could trade or sell. And then, through the 40s, 50s, ended up mostly with prunes, a little bit of grapes.
Yeah.
I grew up right down the road here, went to school at Alexander Valley Elementary. I used to ride my bike to school, and there were probably 5 or 6 vehicles that would pass as I was riding down there, and 4 out of the 5, knew who I was, knew where I came from and where I was supposed to be. So
Your great-great-grandfather planted this vineyard, right?
Yeah, so my great-great-grandfather, Shadrach Osborne, this was his home property.
And so he would have planted this around about...
So late 1870s, 1880s
Right.
is when he was farming here. He moved to this property in 1877.
And the plan is to keep it in the ground, I assume.
yes, is to keep farming it.
It's not about the economics anymore. It's about the history and about being able to take your kids and explain to them, hey, this has been in the ground for this long. This is our family history.
Yeah.
Sharing that with them and passing that down. But our family's been here for 5 generations. I want to make sure that keeps going.
Yeah. And it makes good wine, which is not a bad thing too.
Yeah.
Well, should we go look at some of these old vines?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Okay.
You'd look at a ranch like this back in the 1870s, this would have been perfect because you had some hillside, you could put some cows up there.
Yeah.
You use the intermediate ground for some vineyards, some of the poorer ground, and then out in front you had your tree crops and your row crops,
Right.
fruit. You could grow everything right here on one piece of property.
Which is pretty great.
This has a look of an old one to me.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
One bunch of grapes on that whole vine.
That's basically what you get after 120 years.
I always love walking through ancient vineyards like that. You get this sense of incredible history, that these vines have been here for 120, 140 years and are still producing grapes being turned into wine. I have an incredible passion for ancient vineyards, and it's so cool to walk through those old vines and think, these were here in 1880, they were here in 1920, they're here now, and they're still making grapes.